Welcome to Cultivated Marketer, where we talk marketing professional development so your garden of opportunity grows. This is Brent Bowen.
Hi, I'm Matt Tidwell.
And Matt, it's good to see your beaming face today. I haven't seen it for over a month for sure. It's been at least 6 weeks, right?
Good to see you as well, my friend. It's good to see anybody in this environment we're in, isn't it?
Zoom or otherwise. And we're using for folks that they're not going to be able to see our faces unless they go to the website and see our bio headshots. But Matt and I are using Squadcast, which allows us to almost like a Zoom call, at least see each other and interact with each other while we're doing the call, but doesn't actually record the video. So, but good to see your face. I am very casual today. I've got flip-flops on and a t-shirt, and Matt looks like he has just finished up an IABC international board meeting. He's looking very polished and dapper tonight.
You don't know how correct you are, but as we're all saying in this environment, let's keep things from the waist up because under the table, it's a little more casual. I'll put it that way.
You're running the mullet. I've heard that called you've heard my metaphor of the mullet, right? During my presentation.
Yeah. Party in the,
yeah. Party in the front or party. Yeah. It's a business in the front, party in the back. And I'm hearing there's the mullet attire. So it's business up top, party below the waist on the, whether it's shorts. Although today, we didn't have this outlined in the show script. You and I are just going off the cuff. Today was International Work in Your Pajamas Day, something to that effect. So,
wow, I fit right in. The other nice thing is, if you have your home office, as a lot of us do in our basement, and mine happens to be a walkout, I can leave my golf clubs, which listeners won't be able to see, but you can see out to the side. And so it behooves me to be able to wear a tire. I can just walk out and hit a few golf balls. So.
Get some chipping in.
Get some chipping. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
get some chipping in. Very nice. Well, how have things been going? How have you been doing?
Going well. Things are going great. Just working with students and colleagues and others in this new normal or new abnormal, as I think I heard Andrew Cuomo call it the other day. And interesting time, certainly for marketers, right? I mean, I think a lot of people are really turning their attention to what is life going to look like when all of this is over, right? And how do we capitalize and on what we've learned really through this new way of working? And so I heard one of our leaders the other day said, you don't want to waste a good crisis. You want to learn from it, and I think that's really wise. And so, really watching a lot of the folks I follow, and you're probably doing the same thing in the marketing space to sort of help us lead through, what comes next.
Yeah, and there's a lot of transition and change, and people adapting either well or not so well to that rate of change. And it really, I've been working with a client of mine where we have really defined this moment in time. It is truly the textbook definition of catalyst, what we're experiencing now.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
You've had a lot of folks adapt and work from home and have to, work through Zoom and digital. It's interesting. You mentioned Andrew Cuomo. It's something I wanted to ask you about specifically because I saw something that you shared on LinkedIn and your background and your teaching around crisis communication, just around what you've been sharing with the students. And I saw you've been essentially running almost the playbook of Andrew Cuomo, it looks like, on a daily basis with your students. What's happening there?
Yeah, I always hate to get caught up in one personality or the other, but I think the more important point to be made is, this is a time for leaders to lead with transparency, empathy, right? First, and also to make sure that information that's shared is in fact relevant, because people are looking for what's the information that's relevant to them. And, cutting through the clutter becomes extremely important if you're a leader communicating in these times. And certainly, no question, he's doing a good job of that. But, it's been interesting just to watch all the various leaders in the different municipalities and states and nationally and how they're choosing to address the crisis. But it's so when you work with students around the best way to lead in a crisis, this becomes just great fodder for me to kind of record and use with them. So it's been a very interesting time.
Yeah, a very interesting time, certainly to spend that time with students on the topic that you spend it on. And you've got not only that component, I've been seeing the component, and we're doing it now. What better time for us to launch a podcast? It presented some barriers and some challenges for us, in that you and I, we live less than a couple miles from one another, And you and I are now talking over the interwebs in order to conduct this, right? So Catalyst is also the mother of innovation. I've been seeing a lot of shows launched. Yet at the same time, you're seeing events that would typically happen live. They're not happening. They're being canceled left and right for good reason. And then folks are having to find alternative ways through digital media. And that was part of the motivation for the show. In the welcome episode, we talked about the rate of change.
Yep.
We're living it, brother. It's right. It's right. It's right now.
Absolutely. Aren't you fascinated to watch? I mean, some of the technology and just the software driving behind some of these virtual conferences that are coming up is just amazing. I saw a demo the other day, and you're going to be able to go into different presentation rooms, and it's pertinent to me because as I think I mentioned, I'm on IABC's board, and we've decided to move World Conference now to be completely virtual for all 2,000 plus attendees, and it's pretty slick, and it's gonna still, I think, be a very robust experience. So I'm just fascinated, to your point, these kinds of things are often the mother of invention, and to see some of these things pulled off here in the near future will be very interesting.
Are you allowed to speak to the technology that they're going to be using for the IABC?
I wish I had my notes in front of me. I was, believe me, my eyes were they were silver dollars as I was watching the demo for this thing. But and there's a number of different platforms out there that are allowing organizations to do that, which is great because it's all about the transfer of information and having a robust offering of content, and I think they're going to be able to continue to do that, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I was invited to. It's interesting you brought that up with the breakout rooms and some of the prominent ones. A lot of Zoom has made headlines in a favorable sense because it's enabled work from home, and then also they've got a bit of their own crisis problem they're going through as well, just based on some data breaches and some other things that have been happening within their environment. But when the tool's working and people aren't, finding your account information and getting into it, I participated in a session where there were a lot of people that it was a culture discussion where there were people that were not used to working from home. And yet then they had I got invited almost as a coach, as a small business person that has a home office. This is not too foreign to me, although I do have an office in North Kansas City that I haven't seen in a month. This is not too foreign for me. So I was helping provide tips to folks about what it's like in these breakout rooms. And and there were probably 50 people involved in the session. And then you had little coaches that would do these breakout sessions with folks. So yeah, on the IABC conference thing, we'll put that in the show notes. We'll mention the virtual conference because that was set to be June. It's June, July. It was June last year.
June in Chicago is what was originally scheduled. And now the whole thing is going virtual. It's fascinating.
So we'll put that in the show notes, and we'll also include whatever the selection of the tool is if folks are curious about this emerging technology and the change. So, and the other thing I've been mentioning or noticing as I've been paying attention to, LinkedIn, even us launching the show on LinkedIn is, depending on the day, KC, IABC, BCS either seems just like yesterday to me, or it seems like 3 years ago.
Right.
But the keynote address from our, discussion and from that conference was John Hall, and he wrote a book, Top of Mind. And I don't know if you've had any noticings or what things you have noticed about people in with this catalyst, with this new change or dynamic, this new abnormal, as you put it, how they're working to kind of stay top of mind.
Yeah, it's just been fascinating, and bigger brands are obviously searching for relevance in this kind of time, as are smaller brands, right? I don't know about you, but I was fascinated, and this actually affected my household, right? Because all of a sudden we were out of hand sanitizer, and I'm seeing on the news that our friends down at Rieger have completely retrofitted or it's probably the wrong word, but re-engineered their plant there to move out of the alcohol business and into the hand sanitizer business, and basically turned it on a dime. And I was one of those cars in that line with the helicopter over, on one of the first days of the crisis, waiting for my hand sanitizer and just thinking, wow, what an example of continuing to be relevant, continuing to keep your brand, frankly, in front of in a crowded B2C market. in front of your stakeholders. I just thought they did a fantastic job, and you're seeing examples of that, everywhere, and certainly a lot of the big brands that have come in to help with produce PPE and ventilators and things like that are there as well. They're getting mentioned. Not for their product at this time. They're getting mentioned for what they've done to re-engineer and to reinvent themselves to basically come in and assist with the crisis. I think it's just been fascinating. And again, to your point, keeping themselves top of mind.
Yeah, keeping them pivoting to keep themselves top of mind and be able to provide a service, either intentionally or unintentionally trying to stay top of mind. It's interesting. You mentioned Rieger. One of the other case studies I would pick on or look to, I wouldn't pick on them necessarily, but I'd look to, would be, it wasn't but probably 12 weeks ago that Hy-Vee had said that they were going to completely unwind their home delivery business. And they were in the process of unwinding their home delivery business.
Not so fast.
Not so fast. Right. So,
sure.
Yeah. So we've been seeing businesses and brands do that. We've been seeing individuals do that too. So sure. I've been seeing a lot of the ways that I've had different clients. They've made significant adjustments in maintaining their relevancy. And a lot of that will be around, and this is probably a good segue to John's conversation. How can we help? Mm-hmm. Right. How can we help? So any thoughts before we kind of launch into John's conversation of top of mind? Because I know that was one of the big nuggets he asked was, how can we help? And this is that's probably a good place for us to segue.
Yeah, we didn't know how timely John's keynote at IABC's BCS here would be, but I'm so glad that John ended up being our first guest, if you will, on Cultivated Marketer, because I had been aware of him. He's a great follow, by the way, for those of you who aren't familiar with John Hall. He does a lot of work in Forbes and is an interesting social media follow as well. I went back and looked through some of his Forbes archived pieces, and they're really relevant, to use that word. But I think he's great. He's going to talk a lot about, relevance, certainly, because it's top of mind is what he's well known for, but also trust, which I think he had some very interesting comments around trust, and particularly in the keynote session. I know a lot of us were taking notes furiously, how it's got to be earned, how it has to be validated every day, how you have to really break down what he called the trust barriers, which is something that I know I talk with my students a lot as we look at reputation, particularly with big brands. And so I think he'll be great. And his latest venture is all. I wish we'd had more time to talk about that, because certainly something that I need to get better at, which is time management, right? He's the co-founder of Calendar, which is a scheduling and time management app. And I think you might have been a little more familiar with it than I was. But, I'm finding, particularly in this time, I thought, well, gee, it'll be so much easier to manage my time in this new abnormal, working from home, et cetera. I'm finding not so much. So I need to explore that part of his venture as well, because I could probably use it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's seen an uptick in business for calendar.com.
Yeah, very possibly. Very possibly.
I imagine it's probably had a similar trajectory as to what we've been seeing with Zoom and some of these other services. So, yeah, no, great points about trust too, because I think a lot of that, and you were speaking about that earlier with Andrew Cuomo, just the notion of authenticity. And he spoke a lot about establishing that trust through authenticity too. So with that, Matt, again, great to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So awesome to see you, not just to hear your voice, but to see you and to see your smiling face. So with that, folks, thanks for joining us. We will return here in 2 weeks to chat with Catherine Lawrenson from the IABC BCS conference as well. We talk about networking and the importance of networking in that conversation. But stick around, and we hope you enjoy our conversation with the keynote speaker from the BCS conference, John Hall. Our guest is the co-founder and president of Calendar, a leading scheduling app that he's convinced will change how we manage and invest our time. He writes weekly columns for Forbes and Inc. and has contributed to more than 50 online publications, including the aforementioned, as well as Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, and Mashable, some of my favorite reads, right, Matt?
Absolutely.
So very nice. As the author of the best-selling book, Top of Mind, he is a sought-after keynote speaker where we're catching up with him today at the Kansas City IABC Business Communicators Summit. John Hall, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, awesome. So during the course, you were talking about establishing trust and relationships, and really enjoyed the presentation today. And the whole concept was around top of mind and staying top of mind. So tell us a little bit more about what you shared with the audience today, kind of the vitamin version of what you brought to the group today.
Yeah, well, it's funny that how top of mind came up. I'll come up with the kind of origination of the term for me was I always would say top of mind when I was talking about engaging people. This was years ago. And my examples, I would always end with, you want to be top of mind, because that's what I truly feel is that if you're top of people's mind, it will bring opportunity to you. This could be as a personal example where friends are going on a trip to Vegas and you want to be top of mind we should invite Hall, or, there's all these things that being top of people's mind affect, not just in business. And so I was giving a speech a while ago and I kept saying top of mind, and I was in the process of writing this book. I didn't have a title yet. And a speaker kept hearing it and goes, you know what, you should actually I'm listening to this, and I truly feel that being top of mind is one of the most valuable, not just marketing or comms, a professional term, but it should be on everybody's mind. And so it started with that. And then what I've done since then is identified all the things that are what I call trust touch points that you can engage people a certain way so that you impact their life or engage with them so that you move from their short-term to long-term memory, because that's what gets you top of mind. And so there's all these different trust factors that you can turn into habits on everyday life that will make people connect with you, make people think about you, so that at the right times, the right moment, it's your name, your company that comes to mind. And that's what will naturally bring a lot more opportunity to you.
And you did that with the group. You said that. You used what you told the group, short-term, long-term memory, and you know what I recalled immediately?
What?
Was the Cabbage Patch Kids. So that is permanently imbued into my memory at this point. So yeah, very effective today.
Great display of courage, by the way, at the end of the talk on the Cabbage Patch song.
Yeah, for the listeners, I sing, embarrass myself quite a bit in this speech, and I've been doing it for a while now. Actually, it's if I don't sing at the end and somebody's seen me speak, they get mad. They're actually like, "Why don't you do that?" And I think that for me, it's good to show vulnerability, anytime you speak in front of a group, and because you do connect. Then also, it's just a way to, it's something that actually proves the point that there's a very powerful force with long-term memory that, Cabbage Patch Kids in that example with my sister where she made me sing that song growing up. It's like, I feel like I can be 60 years old. I'll still remember it, 70 years old, 80 years old. And I think it's a good example of how powerful when you engage people consistently, how much that can stay in your long-term memory, and ultimately you can recall it quickly.
Yeah, that's great.
Hey, John, as you think about the top of mind kind of formula or orientation that you talk about, this show in large part is about helping marketing professionals grow and learn, right? So develop themselves. Are there a couple of key tips or maybe some actionable things in that formula that would speak to that kind of orientation?
Yeah. So the first thing is and these aren't I don't preach about rocket science. It's the things that I've realized are the ways you can make things simple. There's a better chance people are going to actually turn them into habits. So the first thing is you always try when you can to ask people what's valuable to them. So what I say is be a value scientist or journalist, actually do research in a way in a conversation where when you're asking them, be interested in what they do. I was just in a conversation where I was asking someone, it was hey, where are you from? But then it was cool. So what's your position? But instead of stopping at the general, formula of, what's your position there? It was, okay, what can I do? And what's your goal in the position? What's the thing that you try to do? And a lot of times people think it's oh, wait, are you trying to sell me something? I'm no, honestly, how can I look out for you? And then people let down their guard a little bit and they're hey, if you ever run into somebody or you speak to somebody that fits this background, and the Spectrum, one of the sponsors, just said, hey, if you run into anybody that is looking for TV ads and things like that, I'm yeah, absolutely, I'll keep an eye out. She seemed really nice that they sponsored this speech, and so it made me know what's valuable to them. So I will, I'm sure, run into somebody that needs that in the future. And she engaged me in a way that there's a chance. Now, it was a short meeting. There's a chance I would think of her. Now, if I saw her several times, then I would know what's valuable to her and help her out. So first thing is always try and be a value scientist or journalist with people. Another thing is a term called content triggering, which if you read the book Top of Mind, I talk about content triggering a lot. And it's a part of being that journalist is that you are identifying things that are engaging in a conversation. So, for example, Matt, if you are, if you're a potential lead or somebody who I'm like, wow, this could be a great person, for example, to hire me for speaking, I'm going to ask you what you found engaging in this speech. I'm going to say, what drew you to be like, hey, you came up and said, nice speech, I enjoyed it. So what about it? And I would ask those things and I would learn. And then I would create content that is around those things. So a lot of times we're very biased in how we create content and how we communicate. It's what we think is cool. It's what we think is interesting. It's funny, like everybody has the friend that tells you the story every damn time you see them, and it's the same story and it's not funny. There's always one friend that does that. And I would just want to tell them is that you have to listen and do content triggering because you're not engaging at all. Like you're telling a story that nobody finds as interesting. And so I think that, train yourself in the process that I do is that as soon as after this, I've already done some content triggering. I have it in my mind. As soon as I get in the car, I'm going to write down those things. These are what people found most engaging. This is what drew people. This is what I connect with people the most. And I'm going to create content around that. And that's where I feel a lot of times people ask me, where do you create the best content from? How do you know if article is going to do well? And I'm telling you, when I nail content triggering, that's when my content does the best.
That's great. I'm so glad you went to value scientists because as you were talking, I tried to tweet out pearls and that was the number one, right? Because I know in our master's degree program, when we're talking with young marketers, so many times it's about come with a perspective, bring something to the table, right? That the client or the company or whoever you're with is going to find valuable that's uniquely yours. And really that's about bringing the value.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times, in business, anybody can do hacks to make quick money. But if you truly focus on value and you evolve in a way where that's where people will say, in business, why did you invest in Calendar after selling the last company? And I was like, honestly, for me, there was a huge value in how I spent my time. I realized that I was having some life balances and I needed to focus on spending a little more time with family. And at the same time, I was a little disorganized. Lots of disorganization. And so I wanted to invest in something that could truly be valuable. And to me, that was to me. Now you can look at other people and what's valuable to them, but as an entrepreneur specifically, a lot of passion comes from starting a company that, when you look into Shark Tank or some of those companies that start, you're like, wow, they saw the problem, they identified the value, and it was truly valuable to them, so they wanted to share that with others. I think it's the same thing as an entrepreneur as with if you're a salesperson or a marketer or anybody. When you're talking to people, identify what's valuable to them, because if you truly find and connect the dots with value, passion emerges from that.
That's great. No, it's great. I don't know if you read David Sedaris, but your thoughts around content triggering and even your habit of stepping into the car and content. If you've ever seen him present live, the humorist David Sedaris, he loves live reads, and he'll actually stop in the middle of a live read, and he'll say, "Hold on a second," when they laugh, and he said, "There's more there, but I'm gonna delete it. I don't need it. You've already gotten the punchline."
Yeah.
So he's doing a form of content triggering. I'm just drawing that parallel. So it's interesting you're sharing these habits that you shared through the talk, which we thought were fabulous. So the notion of value scientists, the content triggering. But one of the others that was so apropos for me, because in the world of best practices, you were talking about thinking differently. What through your journey in creating Top of Mind was maybe the one habit that you shared with the group that just really surprised you through your journey to kind of creating the book, and now that you're sharing your experience, and what I loved about your opening was helping others, what was probably that one habit you picked up that just really surprised you? And maybe surprises you in the way people react to it.
Well, so surprise, this doesn't necessarily surprise me, but it's interesting that one of the biggest challenges with this, and almost like a contradiction of this speech here, is I talk about helping people, but I also talk about focusing and not being distracted. A lot of times when you offer help, you legitimately become distracted because you're always helping on others. And there's a lot of people that become extremely ineffective because they're just focused on others. And so I think that for me, the surprise is it's a little easier to balance than I thought. I thought that if I came at, when I talk there, it's it doesn't hurt to ask people. You don't have to do it. Like it's just good to know. And that's what I try to focus on is like there's a lot of easy, like the example that I gave today was the woman who I spoke to at Content Marketing World who was in Boise, Idaho, and my friend who was in Boise, Idaho, and I basically was moving there, and he had a job opening up. Or he was basically opening up a new office where there'd be job openings. Well, then my next conversation after my speech was with a lady who was in Boise, Idaho, wasn't happy with her job and wanted to, work. And so I connected, and she seemed pretty awesome. I connected the dots. Like, that was easy. It's not like that was ineffective. Like, it was in my conversation that I just brought up, oh, you need to meet my friend over here. It's a great company. You seem cool. And so, like, what I tell people is, like, when I say be, focus and be effective with your time, but then at the same time, like, help others, you got to find that balance. So the surprise is that balance has been easier than I thought, but it is a surprise because you would think those are contradictory statements in a way. But if you find that balance, that's where you find this really, really core productivity in yourself. So
that's great. Yeah. Being able to, and I think that's a common potentially misconception or contradiction is the notion of offering help has to be then difficult. And depending on if you have the right network, it could be somebody else is offering help. You're just brokering the introduction.
Yeah. And it's also, it's once again, value scientists. Like, you're gathering data to understand what real value is. So it's like, I think that the more you understand what real value is, the more you can actually be successful. So it's very giving, and you're going to be able to help people on the way. But in reality, it's very self-benefit. It benefits yourself because then you have all this information to apply in ways. For me, I've done it through entrepreneurship, and others, it can be for a company that generates more revenue from providing different values. And at the same time, you can help others. And so, some are going to be just, you meet a nice person at a conference, you help them out, you don't expect anything in return. That's another thing, is that a book I didn't recommend in the speech that I would highly recommend is Selfless Service by a friend of Jonathan Kaiser. And he's been a great influence on me, because a lot of times when I give, it's almost like, oh, I gave them, they owe me something. And that's natural, is that we feel almost, it's not like mobster, like, oh, I give this to you and you owe me it's not like The Godfather going on here. But in reality, I would give a lot and expect something in return. He's like, no, that's not selfless service. Selfless service is that you give and you have that feeling of, I'm just going to look out for people. And that's, you don't need anything in return. And sometimes you're going to get something in return that's huge. Other times you're not. But once again, with the value and studying it and like understanding it, there's going to be some benefit to you, because you're going to be in a lot better position to offer, people value that at some point can be monetized.
And that's great. That's two things and concepts of why we're doing the show, is continual learning and giving back as part of that continual learning. So appreciate the sentiments and thoughts there. That's awesome.
Chat for a second about a T word, and you used a couple of them in your presentation. I would go with trust, but if we had an hour long, because believe me, today's day and age, trust for marketers, huge. But the T word I want to talk about is time, right? I don't know of a marketer today that doesn't feel stressed, time pressed, multiple clients, multiple home life situations that they're trying to juggle at one time. And so, first of all, would love to hear about the calendar app and kind of how that can help that situation. And just that whole aspect of, we're so time pressed, right? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring it. So my 2020 new keynote is, it's do more with less. And the reason why I did that is because you are pretty much expected. Like, there's no option, and there's a couple things that are influenced. This technology is, oh, hey, you have this technology, you should be able to do more. Also, just the companies cutting fat and different things, trying to be more effective. And so you're just expected to do more with less. And so, in that speech, I talk, and I use actually the data that I get is from calendar.com, and it's from the company I invest in. And from that standpoint, like, I'll give you an example. Like, one of the tools that it does is there's an analytics part of it where it actually will show you how you spend your time with who. Like, it's just very simple. When you're scheduling things, it will, like, I can show you on my app, it will show here the email addresses you're scheduling the most with. And it's hilarious. Like, the first time I did it was sad, is because I did it and my wife was legitimately not remotely, like, she was like the last email address. Like, if I went in the back end, she was like the last person I scheduled some with.
Is it just email, or does it include text?
We're working on that. Text. And so that's
because I would imagine your wife could fall in the text camp, right?
That's like, we're in the early stage. That's what I tell people is, like, we're capable of really great things with that company, because, like, the more we gain trust, the more we can do things like that. but we don't want to seem too crazy stalkerish at first. We want to ease into that, not being a stalker, but in reality, understanding someone's time. And so with the mobile app, we'll be able to collect more data. And the purpose is not to sell data and that it's to help people understand is that just that simple tool of saying, here's who you're scheduling things with, and your wife was not in the ballpark. So it means like maybe I'm hanging out with my wife, that's fine, but I'm not being deliberate about it. The idea that I'm not actually scheduling something with her on my calendar is pathetic. Like and now we schedule, like if you look at my calendar, I can show you it's date night is scheduled. It's not something that I do just because, I'm free this week. You're my last resort for like, I don't have anything else to do. So I'm going to kick it with my number one. Now, in reality, like that's where, like that was like, I was actually having dinner with a guy, his name's Shane Snow. He started a company called Contently and he wrote a great book called Dream Teams. And I was telling him this story and I was like, yeah, man, like in this, like look up here, plug in your phone. And he did it. He downloaded it and he looks and he turns around. His wife was number one on it. And I'm like, well, damn. I was like, you're a lot better than I am. And it was cool to see that because I think that like I wanted to use the excuse, well, like I'm an entrepreneur, I've got a lot of things, but in reality, that's a BS excuse. When I have Shane, who is a guy I respect and he's an amazing entrepreneur, has built some successful companies, I look at him and he spent time scheduling with his wife. And so I think that like those are sparks that really get me excited. Like right now, calendar is more just scheduling, makes it easy to, make your time available. But the next thing we're doing is like, for example, we have a find a time feature, which this will be, let's say all three of us, if we're going to schedule time, you can use like a tool, like a manual entry tool, like a doodle, where you're like, okay, here are my times. And you're still typing in manual entry. When in reality, like you should be able to do that like that. Like if I want to get together my team, my salesperson, my PR person, my this, because a lot of time, and this is how important this is because you have to be able to schedule pretty frequently with other departments because we're in this trend where we have to break down silos. We've never had a situation like we're in now where PR plays a huge benefit in sales. Sales has a huge benefit in marketing with recruiting. They all play together. So there's a lot more across meetings. And so the find a time feature that releases, I think, May 1st, will basically you say, hey, I basically want to schedule with this person, this person, this person, this person, and it will shoot out, here are the top 2 times. And it actually tells you, and rather than you having to be like, because once again, everybody manually, like it doesn't save you much time. Everybody's manually having to go in and look at their calendar anyway. So I think that those are the things that I'm really excited about because when there's more efficiencies there, when there's more effective at work, like I'd love for employees to work less because then there's more time on, doing family time, doing those things. So the more you get, like that's just one kind of feature, but that's how we look at things is what are things in everyday professional lives that take a crap load of time and how can we build in features a central place? Because in reality, I was using 14 calendar apps before we started using this and it was just killing me. Like I was logging out of this, using this, then I was logging out of this. So that's what kind of got my business partner and I think the vision of it there is it was just as simple as it's once again, value scientists. Where is the value in here? I'm sick of having to look at 10 different calendars and try and work it out. So we're going to create this feature. True value. When you try and put it as a sales pitch and you just try and sell on something that can be sold, that doesn't last. Like most companies like that go under. And so that's why, when you focus on that data scientist part of it, you're going to create a app service company that it lasts. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I appreciate, I'm a Doodle user, and you appreciate the organizing principles of it.
Yeah.
But to automate that, and if you're in a corporate environment, a lot of that exists. If you're a large enterprise player, some of the features. But if you're not, and you're working with other entrepreneurs or other companies, there's no organizing automated process to do that, really, that I know of in that way. And that would be a valuable service to the business world and everybody, family life, whoever you're working with, right? Yeah. Community. Yeah. And
I don't like, I think that this industry is so big and I've spoke to their CEO before. He's a nice person and there's a lot of like uses for the tools that are out there right now. So it's like, we're not trying in there. Like somebody was like, what are you trying to go after like Google? No, like in reality, we're once again studying value and we're saying, hey, we've got a great domain that can be focused around time. And so we're not focused, like I'm not even focused on what other people are doing right now. I'm just focusing on following the value with what we're doing. And there's going to be room for everyone. We'll probably make some acquisitions down the road that are those tools because we respect them. We have great relationships with the people in the industry. They're good tools and we still advocate for them. And so we're just in a really good place right now. And yeah, look forward to especially this next kind of version in May. So it should be pretty fun.
That's awesome. Well, anything else you'd like to mention that we may have missed? Where are you spending your time? So you talked about your keynote. You talked about some other things. What haven't we captured in our chat today? I know, Matt, and I'd love to bring you back just probably to spend all of our time on trust.
Yeah.
But what's new for you, and what may we have missed in our quick chat today?
I mean, like in reality, I think that it's hard to sum up what you might be missing because people have different needs. And so what I tell people is I say, I'm very deliberate on how I say here's what you should know, because it changes a person, and also the way you communicate. Like in the speech you saw, every person communicates differently. And so I would say just look, I have a LinkedIn series that LinkedIn has a new product called Series and newsletter where you can follow me on there. I write about different things there. How I talk about things is different there than I do on my Forbes on my Forbes column sometimes, or on Twitter, or I try and not communicate in different styles so that people can resonate on different platforms. And so, I mean, my key takeaway is that even if I didn't make any interesting statements here, it's don't give up on me. Go look at some of those places, and I try to listen to others. I try to do that content triggering, and you're going to find some part of my content that you personally can connect with, and you're going to be engaged with. So I wish I had a better straightforward answer that's universal, but in reality, look at my content, LinkedIn, Forbes, Inc. Magazine, Lifehack. Those are the places I contribute pretty consistently. And then I occasionally do HBR, Fast Company, and places like that.
And can I tell you how refreshing it is to just look somebody up on Twitter and it's John Hall, right? And common name, but you got the market cornered.
Yeah, got the handle. Yeah, people are like, wait a minute, how do you, and in reality, I told you guys in there, it's I'm very focused on industry ownership. If I do consulting, it is about industry ownership, and that's where it's if you're going to own an industry, own it. Legitimately, don't say I'm gonna go halfway there. I'm going to no. If you look, we own the handle on a lot of those things. If you look at Facebook, YouTube channel, we own calendar. So when I go into something, one of my things is to people is commit to owning an industry. And when I'm doing a strategy, I map out that blueprint and say, here's what we need to do. Now it might take us 2, 3 years, 5 years to get there, but at least we're going to commit to truly owning and leading this industry. And that's what a lot of times people are in corporate red tape, where they can't truly do what they need to be done. But nowadays, you're not going to survive. You're going to be disrupted by the next startup. And so you've got to get that blueprint down. You got to make sure it's super clear, and you got to start executing against that.
Yeah, that blueprint, the talk and the blueprint itself was extremely refreshing as somebody that does marketing strategy and prides himself on integrated marketing strategies, because any one of those platforms could shift over time. And even the intersection you talked about of PR and SEO, I was in front of a group of students here at the master's program last week talking about, I'm having a hard time deciphering what is SEO, backlink, acquisition, and PR. I'm an old school PR practitioner. They about look the same these days. So yeah, that blueprint example you provided at the onset was, I welcomed it. Thank you. Because so many folks are in areas of specialization and silos. So that was a great contribution, I thought, to the group.
Well, how that was sparked was, I think the guy asked a question about, with marketing strategies, how do you know what blogs to do, or what, and I get asked this all the time. What do I start out, or what do I do? Should I start doing this? I'm I can't answer that question until we have a blueprint down, because we might map out everything: social, PR, SEO, blog content, guide, YouTube. We're going to map this stuff out. And unless we have unlimited money, now if we have unlimited money, I'm going to be yep, let's do it all. But most people don't. And you say, okay, let's map this out, then let's prioritize. With some people, it's going to be different. Some people, it's going to be focus on this at the time. Other, it might be, internal resources. Another person, they might have no press about them, so no credibility at all. And I'm going to be no, you got to hit that first. Legitimately, if I look at you, you don't look like a legitimate company. Or you look at the competitor and it's look at, they're consistently being talked about. Look at the comparison, and I don't want to be worried about them. I just want to identify you're not doing anything. Let's focus on you. And so that's where I think that, I just did a blueprint for someone that they were well, how do we do this across? How do we do this across? How do we know what the SEO person does? How do we know what the agency does? How do we know this? And I'm and they act like there's not a solution there. And I'm as funny as it is, did you go to business class? Yeah. Okay. Did you ever do a matrix, a RACI matrix, or some similar matrix? It's very simple, but it takes somebody, and that's what I did a RACI matrix for a firm this year, or actually a couple months ago, where I just mapped things out for them, and they thought it was like magic. And I was like, guys, this is all I did was listen to you. I got a matrix. I said, this is what this person does. This is my suggestion on what this person should do. This is what you should outsource. This is what you should do it. And we just put that in a matrix. And now that's a part of the blueprint, but now at least you know who the hell's doing what.
And tying it back to your business, what you're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
We're all back to trust and credibility. John, it's been awesome speaking with you and having you at the IABC Business Communicator Summit. Thanks for joining us today.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks a lot, John.
Guys.
Appreciate it.
Take care, everybody. If you found value in today's episode, check us out on our website, cultivatedmarketer.com. You'll also be able to subscribe to us, rate us, and leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platform, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Remember, a garden of opportunity grows with Cultivated Marketer.